So, let us find the truth about the God named Allah. Shiva, Maheshwara equals Huba plus El, Allah, formless, infinite, omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent God. Hubal was a god worshipped in pre-Islamic Arabia, notably by Quraysh at the Kaaba. His idol is represented by a man standing with a crescent moon over his head and the Zamzam river falling onto his hair, then descending onto earth. After Bhagirath convinced Akasaganga to descend onto earth, he had to convince Lord Shiva to control its force. Shiva, with a crescent moon on head, takes full force of Ganga and diverts it onto earth through his hair. After Ganga was revered as holy, Zamzam followed its steps, and many years later, Catholicism started giving publicity to Lord's water in France on similar lines. Makkah was dedicated to Hubal, who was worshipped as the greatest of the 360 idols the Kaaba contained, which is wrongly taught as represented the days of the year. Hubal was God, believed to control acts of divination, which were performed by tossing arrows before the statue. The direction in which the arrows pointed answered questions asked of the idol. The triple goddess has been adopted by many new pagans as one of their primary deities. Ilat and Al, Azar and Manat. Also, Allat is a pre-Islamic goddess in Arabia, whose idols were broken after Makkah was captured in 630 CE. These three pre-Islamic goddesses look similar to Vedic goddesses Lakshmi, Parvati, Saraswati. There is an argument that Hubal was the original god, Allah, in Arab and was later replaced by Muhammad as he did not want God to have a shape or idol. The word Allah is a combination of two words, Al, plus Ilah, the god or masculine plus feminine energy as in Ardhanarishwara. In fact, the word Allah existed much before Islam, as Muhammad's grandfather was Abdullah, meaning slave of Allah. In fact, Abrahamic religions have taken words from Sanatan Dharma, like Brahma is the Braham, father of mankind. Orion is represented as Vrishakapi, one form of Rudra, who both incarnated as Hanuman in Puranas and Veda. Even pyramids of Giza are aligned to Orion's, Hubal's, Shiva's belt. This evidence alone is enough to shake many historians and experts, because it connects Egypt, Arabia to a Vedic nation. This evidence alone will force the experts to change their so-called chapters in history. Many centuries before Prophet Muhammad and the destructive advent of Islam, Arabia or Arabistan was an extremely rich and glorious center of Vedic civilization. It is Muhammad and the followers of Islam who are fully responsible for the dissemination and destruction of this once glorious culture. In learning about this most ancient heritage, let's begin with the word Arabistan itself. Arabistan is derived from the original Sanskrit term Arvastan, which means the land of horses. Since time immemorial, proponents of the Vedic culture used to breed exceptional horses in this region. Thus eventually the land itself began to be called Arva, horses, Stan, place. The people who lived in this land were called Semitic. Semitic comes from the Sanskrit word Smritik. Arabs followed the ancient Vedic Smritis such as Manu Smriti as their revered religious guides, and thus they were identified as Smritic, which has been corrupted into Semitic. Even various kinds of swords were referred to as Handwani, Hindi, Saif-ul-Hind, Mahanad and Hindwani. The Sanskrit astronomical treatise Brahmas Siddhanta in Arabic translation is known as Sindh-Hind, while another treatise Ganda Khadyaka was called Akan. Mathematics itself was called Hindasa. Some people wrongly believe that Arabs used the word Hindu as a term of contemptuous abuse. Nothing could be further from the truth. The people of pre-Islamic Arabia held Hinduism in great esteem, as evidenced from the fact that they would endearingly call their most attractive and favorite daughters as Hinder and Safi Hindi. The fact that Arabs regarded India as their spiritual and cultural motherland long before the damaging influence of Islam is corroborated by the following poem, which mentions each one of the four Vedas by name. I am Varekal Araj Yushaya Nohaminar Hinde. Va aradakallaha manyane failchikaratam. O the divine land of Hind, India, how very blessed art thou! Because thou art the chosen of God, blessed with knowledge. Vahalati jali yachun enana sahabi akaratan jikro bajayi unaj jalo. Resu minal hindatan. That celestial knowledge which like four lighthouses shone in such brilliance, through the utterances of Indian sages in fourfold abundance. Yakuluna lahaya ahal araf alamingul lahun. Fatub yujikaratul veda bukun malam yunajalatun. God enjoins on all humans, follow with hands down the path the Vedas with his divine precept lay down. Bahawa alamus samal wal yajul minalahit anajilan. Fa enoma ya akigo utiabean yubashirium jatan. Boasting with divine knowledge Asam and Yajur bestowed on creation. Hence brothers, respect and follow the Vedas, guides to salvation. Va isanen humarig athan nasehan ka ikovatam. Va asant ala udan babor masha iratam. Two others, the Regan Athar teachers. Fraternity, sheltering under their luster dispels darkness till eternity. This poem was written by Labi bin Ayaktab bin Aturfa, who lived in Arabia around 1850 BC. That was 2300 years before Muhammad. This verse can be found in Ser-ul-Okul, which is an anthology of ancient Arabic poetry. It was compiled in 1742 AD under the order of the Turkish Sultan Salim. Volumes 3 and 4, Sir W. Drummond adds in his book as Sahabaism was the universal language of mankind when Abraham received his call. Their doctrines were probably extended all over the civilized nations of earth. Sahabaism is merely the corruption of the word Shavism. On page 439 of this book, Sir Drummond mentions some of the gods of pre-Islamic Arabs, all of which were included in the 360 idols that were consecrated in the Kaaba shrine before it was raided and destroyed by Muhammad and his followers. Here are some of the Vedic deities and their original Sanskrit names. The Kaaba temple, which was misappropriated and captured by Muslims, was originally an international Vedic shrine. The ancient Vedic scripture Harihareshwar Mahatmya mentions that Lord Vishnu's footprints are consecrated in Makkah. An important clue to this fact is that Muslims call this holy precinct Haram, which is a deviation of the Sanskrit term Harim, i.e. the precinct of Lord Hari alias Lord Vishnu. The relevant stanza reads, Ekam padam garayantu makkayantu dvitiyakam tritiyam sthapitam divyam muktyai shuklisya sanidham. The allusion is to the Vamana incarnation of Lord Vishnu, whose blessed feet were consecrated at three holy sites, namely Gaya, Makkah and Shukla Tirtha. Worshipping such carved, holy foot impressions is a holy Vedic custom which convert Muslims are inadvertently perpetuating. But in doing this they delude themselves and mislead others that these foot impressions, which are on reverential display in several mosques and tombs around the world, are in fact Muhammad's own. There are several snags in this argument. Firstly, worshipping a foot impression amounts to idolatry and should therefore be taboo for a true Muslim. Secondly, Muhammad disclaimed having performed any miracles. Therefore, there can be no foot impression of his on stone. Thirdly, foot impressions must always be in pairs like shoes. Yet in most of these shrines, it is usually a single footprint, which suggests that Muhammad walked on only one foot. Another question that crops up is whether the foot impression is of the same size and foot in all the shrines. The fact appears to be that when the Vedic Kaaba shrine in Makkah was invaded by Muhammad, the pairs of foot impressions of Vedic deities there were plundered and later traded to the gullible and devout as Muhammad's own footprints for some favor, reward or personal gain by unscrupulous Muslims. That is why they are single and not in pairs. The black stone, which is the Shiv emblem, also known as Sunday Aswad, which is a corrupted form of the Sanskrit word Sankhe Ashweta meaning non-white stone, still survives in the Kaaba as the central object of Islamic veneration. All other Vedic idols could be found buried in the precincts or trampled underfoot in labyrinthine subterranean corridors if archaeological excavations are undertaken. The black stone has been badly mutilated, its carved base has disappeared and the stone itself is broken at 7 places. Its parts are now held together by a silver band studded with silver nails. It lies half buried in the southeastern portion of the Kaaba wall, and the term Kaaba itself is a corruption of the Sanskrit word Gabha, Berber plus Graha, which means sanctum. In addition, in the inscriptions from Hajjah and its neighborhood was found a water vessel dedicated by members of 2 tribes called Rama and Somya. Rama and Soma are Vedic deities. Rama is of the solar dynasty and Soma is of the lunar dynasty. The moon god was called by various names in pre-Islamic times. One of them was Allah. Allah had 3 children, Allat, Al-Azan, Manat. Allat and Al-Azhar were both feminine deities. Allah is another name for the Hindu goddess Durga. It is obvious that the goddess Allat was Allah, Durga, and Al-Azhar was Urja, energy or life force, also known as Shakti. Manat was none other than Somnath, which is another name for Lord Shiva. One significant point to note that Soma in Sanskrit means moon and Nath means Lord. Thus the Kaaba itself was dedicated to the moon god Somnath alias Shiv, and the word Somnath was corrupted to Manat. The famous black stone is none other than the Shivling of Matkeshwar alias Makka. Lord Shiva is always shown with the crescent moon on his head, and every Shiva temple is supposed to have a sacred water spring representing the Gangas. The crescent moon pinnacle of the Kaaba and the Zamzam spring, actually Zamza from Ganga, are irrefutable testaments to the Vedic origins of the Kaaba.